Welcome to Still In It, a 5-MeO DMT Journeys podcast, where I talk to real people about their 5-MeO experience. Our goal is to bring you honest and diverse perspectives about what this medicine is all about. I'm your host, Jessie, and I'm excited to have you along for the ride. So hop in and enjoy as we discuss what preparation, ceremony, and integration look like. This podcast is sponsored by Enfold, offering safe and sacred experiences in British Columbia. To learn more, visit enfold.org. That is enfold.org. Or click the link in the show notes. And now, without further ado, I hope you enjoy today's episode. We have a very special guest because she's going to offer a very unique perspective, given that she did her 5-MeO experience just over 2 years ago. So everybody, welcome Caroline.
Thank you.
No problem. The first question we always ask is, what called you to the medicine?
For me, it was as maybe it is for everybody, it's a bit of serendipitous timing. I knew about this probably for a year or two prior to having done it. And so it'd kind of been in my back pocket for a little while. And then COVID was happening, actually, was when sort of all of this was unfolding for me. And it brought me to a place where there was just so much going on in my life, like lots of change, whether it was business, personal, with my extended family. And it just really upended a lot of things for me and got me deeply questioning who I am and how this whole sort of how I am in that moment, like how I was in that moment. Who am I today? What is happening? How am I going to get through this? And I was just feeling a lot of deep grief that I couldn't really shake. So I had actually sent a message to Steve and said, hey, happy birthday. Hope you have a great year, all that kind of stuff. And then he messaged me back, thank you so much. And by the way, I happen to have a spot for this upcoming retreat at the end of the month. Maybe it has your name on it. And I didn't respond. I didn't respond at all. I didn't even give it a thumbs up. I didn't even give it a like. And I just thought, oh my God. And so that feeling, sitting with that feeling of knowing what this spot was, and it was only about maybe 3 weeks away. I just really thought about it. I talked to my husband, I talked to my kids, and they're just like, just do it. You've been thinking about it for a long time. And so I just decided to say yes.
Had you done any other psychedelics before?
Not really. Like that, I had done like marijuana, I did a bit of mushrooms, but that's it. I hadn't done anything else before this.
Okay, wow, that's a big yes. Very, very cool that you shared it with your kids. They're
like adult kids. I should preface by saying they're like in their early 20s. So
yeah, they're like 8.
Yeah.
Like, should I do this?
Exactly.
No, but that is really cool because we definitely have some guests that come who have like children that are like adults, but they choose to like keep it from them. I guess it really depends on like where you're from, and like you're from the West Coast where psychedelics are, I guess, a little bit more accepted by the culture and change and whatnot. Cool. Do you remember how your actual experience was? Could you maybe speak a little bit about your experience during your 5-MeO journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like with everybody, it just depends on where you're at. So everything felt quite serendipitous. The fact that I didn't have several months to prepare or not prepare because I wasn't familiar with having done a lot of psychedelics. I think I just needed that short bit of time before I ended up showing up to the retreat. And because everything there was so much going on in my life at the time, when I got there, I already felt like I was in full surrender. Like I had no preconceived notions of what it needed to be for me other than a hopeful sort of shift. I definitely went in with the intention of, hoping to release a lot of the grief and anger that I had been feeling, but also approached it a little bit like childbirth. Like, people will give you advice, they try to guide you and all that kind of thing. But it'll be my own experience. And I know that everybody's experience is going to be totally different. Kind of like childbirth, like, right? You know, you get all the advice, you can do all the research, but you actually show up to do it. It's like nothing I would have ever experienced before. And that's essentially what happened. So when I went in to do the dose, I was in a complete state of surrender. And I'd never done anything remotely like to this degree of the power of the medicine. So in that initial handshake dose, I took it in and it came over me almost immediately. And I just looked at Steve's face. I saw these fractals and I just kind of fell backwards. And in that first handshake dose, I was somewhere else. I was deep in this like incredible, expansive, brilliant, beautiful space. I felt like I was moving quite quickly, but I lost all sense of time and space and gravity. And then as I slowly came to, I kind of shocked myself by being like, I can't believe that was just the initial dose. It was so incredibly huge. It was a bit overwhelming. So when I came to and took a moment, I started to get a little bit in my head. So I was like, let's just do this again really quickly so I don't get too caught up in my head. So went in for the other dose, and same thing. I just fell into it quite quickly and immediately felt this expansive, beautiful light. There was a lot of beautiful, brilliant colors that was coming to me. It was literally the feeling of being everywhere and everything all at once. I felt a deep, deep connectedness to all things. I lost all sense of time and space, and I could feel like past, present, future was all happening all at the same time. And slowly, so that was just like this infinite feeling, essentially. It was just this really deep feeling of infinite. I couldn't understand that feeling before. When I tried to intellectualize, like, what is infinity? I couldn't understand it. But even now, when I think of it, I can feel it. I can feel it inside of me. So that whole, I have no idea how long it took, but the feeling of wholeness was like nothing I'd really ever felt before.
Yeah. I find that, like, for 5-MeO, because it's so quick, the onset, that is part of, like, the magic as well. Because, like, all of a sudden you're just encapsulated in all this. It's not like a slow, like, you know, build, like, da-da-da. It's like, whoa, I am here. And it's like, that's part of the marvel. Yeah. Did you only end up doing 2 doses, or did you do another one after that?
So after that, I kind of came to, and they were saying, we think you've kind of had this complete experience. How do you feel? Do you remember what you said? The only thing I remember saying at one point, because at one point in this expansive space, I felt like I was almost like lingering for a little bit. And I remember them saying, just ask for what you need if you'd like during your process. And so I remember saying, like, I'm not sure where I am right now or what I need, but I'm a little bit in this in-between stage. And then the minute I said that, I just fell right back into a deeper state of just like a deep, deep knowing. And so when I came to, Steve had said, do you remember what you said? I articulated that. And he goes, well, what you also said was, I died. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And just kept repeating that state of deep, deep gratitude. And as soon as he said that, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That's completely what happened.
Yeah. Wow. You kind of went in, you said, with the 2 intentions of surrender and releasing. And part of surrendering is, in a way, dying. That's like the complete surrender. That's like, okay.
Yeah. So
okay,
to answer your question, so I wasn't sure like what to do because it felt like it was sort of complete. And then we kind of went outside for a bit. We just hung out. And then I was about to leave and they said, do you feel complete? Are you Are you good? And I hesitated. And then Steve's like, you know what? You hesitated. Let's go back. So I went back in. And in that last dose, I fell back in again pretty hard. But then it was hilarious because it was kind of like still that same whole feeling, but also like emptiness, and not a negative emptiness, but a complete like blank emptiness, where it actually made me guttural laugh. Like I was laughing hysterically, thinking like, I was just like, oh, this is hilarious. Like I got everything I needed. It's all good. Like it's all good. Oh my God, this is so funny that I felt like I needed to go back in. Really, like I didn't need that, but I'm so grateful that I did come back in because there's just like nothing here, literally nothing here. And I was just laughing hysterically because it's like, there's nothing left for me here. There's nothing left for me here.
That's so beautiful though.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because I think one of the quotes that like, I don't know if Steve has it on his email bio, but it's like, I just looked up to the sky and laughed because like part of like what life is in a way that I view it post 5 is like, this is just an experience and it's kind of like all nothing in a way. So sometimes all you can do is just laugh at the absurdity of experience.
Exactly. And I think that moment also stays with me to this day, is like, don't take myself too seriously. Like this is just kind of hilarious. So in a lot of moments where even now, if I find myself in deep conflict, at a certain point, I just sort of, again, let go and just kind of laugh and have a bit of that release. So it's yeah.
Yeah, it allows you to like get a little bit of space between whatever you're working with. That's beautiful. You did mention you came in with kind of questions of like who I am. You had a lot of change, working through grief and surrender. Initially, after your retreat and experience with 5, did you find that you were able to work through that, or how did the process kind of look for you?
It's interesting. I think for me, it just went away. Like I felt a lot of groundedness and connectedness and deep, deep wholeness and a commitment to self that I don't know that if I've ever felt or hadn't felt in a really, really long time. So it wasn't necessarily in that moment and right after the retreat that I felt like I had to process things. I think it was within this past 2 years that more has sort of unfolded and processed. So it's like going another layer deeper.
Okay. Yeah. They do say 5 has a very like long integration tail. Do you mind maybe, if you are open to it, adding a bit more context of like kind of how it unfolded for you and what you've been kind of working through and how you feel to this day?
Yeah, I think that what was great for me is that 5-MeO, it sort of opened this door for me to walk in. And I walked in, I had the experience. And then after that, I felt quite clear about like things that were causing me conflict before. Sort of, I just let it go. It didn't really affect me in that way, which I can imagine right after and for a few months after, you're kind of in that space, right? You're kind of in that afterglow. And then sort of like I did mine in May, and then towards the fall, I was having some health issues. So I sought out this acupuncturist that I had the number for, again, for a couple of years. I started doing some more body work with her, and through that started tapping in a little bit deeper. And so with her by my side and with the support again of my family, just the deeper things that I unfolded, I just kind of kept saying yes to them. So when I say yes to them, I mean yes to going deeper. And I think my experience with having done 5-MeO first and having stepped through that door, and that message that I got of like to trust and to remember that you are connected to everything, allowed me to really go through the unpacking of all this other stuff. that's come up, whether it's looking at, you know, my ways of being a people pleaser, looking at kind of all the ways in which I behave with these different relationships in my life, whether it's my husband, my business partner, my kids, my mom, all of it, all the different roles. I just kept examining that and the supportive or unsupportive ways that I show up for those roles in my life, if that makes sense. So, you know, if I hadn't really done the ceremony with Enfold first, I don't know that I would have that my life would have kept unraveling with the insights that I've been uncovering to this day. I think that is one of the biggest gifts is, you know, when I look at the arc of my lifetime and my life, there's all these different points in my life where I've sought to go inward, whether it was like the death of my dad, the birth of my child, my children, you know, they've allowed me opportunities to go inward and to connect to self. And then, you know, life happens and I'm functioning and I'm just on this journey. And then COVID happened, and then all these other conflicts that I've never experienced before happened. It was an opportunity to re-examine where I am in my life and who I am as a person and how I show up for myself and other people in my life. Since I've done it and over this past 2 years, it's just been more of that. It's like really leaning into those points of discomfort and exploring what that is. I think that it's just been an ongoing commitment to keep choosing to welcome these points of discomfort.
Yeah, I think what's coming up for me while you're saying that is like this concept of safety. So it's like the trust kind of comes with the safety part, where it's like instead of when these things are coming up for you and unfolding, you're looking at yourself deeper. It's like you feel safe enough to kind of look a little deeper and understand that and trust that all is okay. Whereas I think like sometimes people's like defense mechanisms come up where you clam up or you don't want to actually address certain areas. So we, without realizing it, kind of like allow that to be a blind spot and not like go a little bit deeper. I'm not sure if that resonates with you or if you kind of always felt very okay.
Like, I think that, I realize that most people don't really want to come the discomfort in. And I totally get that. There's been a lot of times over the last 2 years where I'm like, oh my God, this is exhausting. Like, this is a lot of work. But I think living in the place of denial and like suppression is more exhausting than kind of working through the thick of the mud and coming out the other side. For me, it's once you kind of see stuff, I have a very hard time unseeing it. I just need to keep seeing it and choosing to show up for it. But I just don't know how else to be. It's just literally, I don't know another way of being.
You came in with very little preparation. Looking back, if for somebody who's like going to go and embark on a 5-MeO journey, whether with Enfold or not, like what is like maybe a piece of wisdom or advice that you wish you kind of knew or want to like get out into the world?
Just think that, again, to go back to that childbirth thing again, it's like we can be told all of these things. You can listen to all these different experiences. You can prep as much as one can prep for something that you've never experienced before, really. But that every experience is its own. And just to be open to the gift of the possibility of something great. And to know that there's a level of liberation on the other side of it. I think that everybody's experience is so different, but I think it's crucial that you have people on the other side of it that you can call on, that can be there with you, to help you through the other side of it, because there is the processing side of it. I feel grateful that I had a very incredible experience that wasn't necessarily so challenging right after the afterglow of it, but the door that it did open, there was a lot of other difficult things that I've experienced over the last couple of years in processing on a deeper level that I really feel grateful for, that I have people around me to support that. So I'd say that those are the things: be open to possibility, but make sure that you've got people around you that can help be there with you as you go through the other side.
Yeah, integration is like a key aspect to psychedelic journeys, and it's something that's constantly, I think, being workshopped and trying to understood of like what is the best way to integrate experiences. And one of them is just support, whether that comes from even like a body worker coming to like community things, but mainly I would say like, yeah, having like trusted friends or family, or even like a therapist that can kind of help, because yeah, it may not happen the week after, the 2 weeks after, but it does open a door that sometimes you need to lean on others to help like ground yourself and walk through it. So it's super important.
It is really important, yeah. And I think it still continues to be a choice to this day, like any experience, and like anything that is so powerful and deep. I think in our Western culture, we're always looking for those quick fixes and those amazing things, which it absolutely can be. But to go in with the understanding that it may require still a lot of work on the other side of it if you choose it. It's like I still really am aware that I am choosing this every day. I'm choosing it every day.
Yeah, I think regardless, like with 5-MeO, I struggled to see how it would not be a profound experience for anybody, regardless if it was a challenging trip or a beautiful
Mhm.
trip. It's just so like all encompassing. But yeah, like it could just be a profound experience, or it could be a profound experience that actually shifts you. And it's about like showing up and opening those doors and looking at yourself and unfolding the way you are. And I think that's a testament, though, because I would say a lot of our community, I always find it so fascinating, even like with you coming to integration calls, like 2 years later, I'm just like, wow, this is like some profound medicine. Like people, it might just live with you forever, and it kind of fundamentally shifts the way you see the world and interact with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We do love to end our podcast now with a little rapid fire questions. But how would you describe the Enfold experience in a single sentence or a couple of words?
It was like every aspect felt so thoughtful,
Great.
safe, loving, cared for. Yeah.
What are your top two takeaways from your experience at Enfold?
To just trust and surrender. Trust and surrender.
What do you know now that you didn't know before this experience?
What it felt like to be so deeply whole. And I think that feeling of wholeness comes from this deep understanding of connectedness to everything.
And the last one that I'm curious about, would you ever do 5-MeO DMT again?
I've thought about that. That is one question that I get asked a lot. Why not? What's cool is I don't feel called to it right now. And I actually love that. I'm really grateful for that. It doesn't feel like I have this yearning to be like, oh, I got to get back there. I need to do this thing again. It's like, what I really love about it is that I got what I really needed in that experience. And I'm still kind of, you know, reveling in it by doing this other work now in it. So I'm not called yet, but never say never. I'm super open.
100%. I totally believe, though, with all psychedelics, large journeys, that it's a calling, and
Yeah.
it's like never say never, but until you get that call, it's probably not like necessarily something you need to do at this time in your life.
And that's the other thing, I guess, is it's, it was really hard for me in that moment to be like, okay, now, like, but it's so clear to me now why it was then, like why it wasn't the year prior or, a few months prior. It just, for me, it just had to be then. And that's, I think, a lot of life, when we make these decisions, we may not know at that moment what propels us to say yes, but, project yourself a few months forward and it's like, oh yeah, right, of course. Well, that makes sense.
It all makes sense. Yeah, it seems serendipitous, but then it's like, it almost feels a little planned from the universe.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. You're such a
Thank you
lovely
for the
little, you're so
invitation.
bubbly. I love it.
Thank you for the invitation, Jessie. Yeah, it's nice to have this time with you.
Thanks for listening to the Still In It podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're interested in hearing more, the best thing you could do is to leave us a review. This allows us to continue to record and inform others on the 5MEO experience. If you want to join our beloved community or learn more about us, feel free to visit us at enfold.org. That is enfold.org.